basically do a short intro for each agenda item and then give the senator the opportunity to share his thoughts with us. And then once Congressman Trone joins us, we'll hopefully hear from him as well. There will be opportunities for each member to ask questions. If you just want to raise your hand, we'll take you in the order in which you raise your hand. And then we also have an opportunity for the public to comment at the end of the meeting. So we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Delegate Valentine has offered to do the prayer this morning. Delegate.
Claiming the 2020 election was illegitimate. The Justice Department succeeded in getting that lawsuit.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussions as we not only do your work, but also as we continue to serve the individuals in our respective districts and throughout Western Maryland and the state of Maryland. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Delegate. So the first item that we have on the agenda is border security. And I took the liberty of getting some information from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. They estimate in excess of 250,000 border encounters for the month of December 2022, compared to 40,000 in December of 2020. Annualized, this is in excess of 3 million border encounters. For the fiscal year 2022, there were also 152,000 unaccompanied minor encounters. We've all seen the news footage about the Mexican cartels, the child sex trafficking, the busing and flying of immigrants across the country, relaxation of immigration laws, and kind of an overall threat to our national security. And the process really doesn't seem fair to those that wait years to go through an established immigration process. So I know this is a difficult and complex issue, Senator, but I was wondering if you could let us know what actions the Congress is taking and what your thoughts are on the subject.
Sure, absolutely, Chairman Weigel. So first of all, it's great to be with you. Great to be with the Western Maryland delegation. Congratulations to all of you on your elections in some cases, your re-elections in others. I had a chance to see some of you from Washington, Allegheny, and Garrett counties at the Mountain Maryland event in Annapolis a little bit earlier this season. I always remember fondly my time in Annapolis. You got a lot to do in 90 days. And I do want to introduce somebody who most of you, if not all of you, already know, Nan Mann, who's my regional director. And please feel free to call her or me on any issue because we all share the same constituents. Sometimes they call you on a federal matter, and we look forward to partnering with you on it. And sometimes they call us on a matter that's more appropriately dealt with at the local or state level. So I just wanted to say at the outset, we look forward to continue to partner with you on behalf of all of our constituents. So on the immigration issue, there's no doubt we have a broken immigration system, and my view is that the answer lies in the long term on a comprehensive immigration reform bill that enhances even more our border security, but also provides some path to legalization for the dreamers and others. Now, right now, it doesn't. I have to say, it doesn't look like the prospects of that federal legislation are good anytime soon. So, in the meantime, we need to continue to do everything we can to secure the border. Now, the figures you cited, to my knowledge, are accurate for fiscal year 2022. There has been a big change since December of last year and the end of January of this year, because the Biden administration, as you know, has kept in place Title 42, and then they made a new process for people who are seeking asylum in the country, seeking to come into the United States under asylum status, that they have to apply from their home countries. And that applied to at least four countries, Venezuela, Nicaragua, I think Cuba, and I think the other one was Haiti. Anyway, there are four countries that they were selected because the majority of folks that are trying to illegally cross the border come from those four countries. And so they've instituted that system. And the results have been pretty dramatic. They've seen a big drop in the numbers in January and so far in February. When it comes to, but I would agree that we need to do more, but I also believe we need ultimately to have that comprehensive immigration reform plan. We had a hearing just yesterday in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the fentanyl crisis. And I believe that's also on your agenda, but I just wanted to raise it in this context as well, because all of us, every one of us knows of a family that's lost a loved one to the opioid crisis, and especially fentanyl. I mean, over 2,500 Marylanders were lost in the last year, for which we have the information. And I think it's about 80 to 90% of those are a result of fentanyl. And the reason we had the hearing in foreign relations is, number one, a lot of the precursor chemicals are coming from China. And so we've got to address that as part of the overall, China challenge and threat. And then the Mexican cartels are also running way too freely, and we need to work with the Mexican government. I raise this because when it comes to fentanyl, over 90% of the fentanyl coming to the United States is coming through legal border crossings and legal ports of entry. As you know, just a teeny bit of fentanyl can create a lot of death. And so we definitely need and are investing in trying to improve the technologies we have to detect fentanyl at these border crossings, which is the main conduit right now for fentanyl. So let me stop there. Happy to try and answer any follow-up questions you've got.
Thank you, Senator. I do appreciate your response to those issues. Anyone have questions? Delegate Boucher.
Well, I just want to take the time to thank the senator for bringing this issue up. Today is precisely the 6th anniversary since I lost my daughter to fentanyl. And it means a lot to me that you're on top of this. I hope we can find a solution. I hate to see other parents and other loved ones out there suffer as much as I have. And it's a top priority for this nation. And you as a senator providing leadership, I'm sincerely grateful. So bless you and thank you very much.
Well, Delegate Boucher, as I've said before, I am so sorry again for your loss. And I know that you are determined to make sure that we do everything we can to prevent other families from facing that loss. So we look forward to partnering with you in every way, from preventing, fentanyl from getting to the United States, and also taking actions here, right, to make sure that we are able to, provide treatment services for individuals who are addicted to opioids.
Thank you, Senator. It really has reached crisis levels. And when you think about the dangers that it can cause to our national security by just, you could wipe out just thousands of people by doing stuff to our water systems or whatever. So we appreciate your response to that and being on top of it. Chris, you want to go next?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Senator, for joining us. I really appreciate it. You mentioned that, I think you said 90% of the fentanyl is coming through legal border crossings. So, I mean, I mean, obviously, if you knew if we all knew the solution, we could fix it. But I mean, how do we resolve that? Is that just, getting a better, managing the legal border crossings better, or?
Yeah, I think there are three main things to do just in terms of the interdiction. The first is to put more pressure on the government of Mexico to go after the cartels, because the cartels are the ones who are organizing, the smuggling of fentanyl across the border. So the more we crack down on them there, the better. I should also say, and this was partly the subject of yesterday's hearing, the precursor chemicals, interrupting them even before they get to Mexico, where they're then mixed to create the to create the opioid with fentanyl, and then it is more we are intercepting lots of fentanyl at the border, but obviously we know that lots is getting through. That's where we get these measurements and statistics. So we are trying to develop better technologies, because those border crossings, there's a lot of traffic going through there every single day, these legal border crossings. And so trying to develop better technologies to find the fentanyl is obviously essential there. But again, I go back to the government of Mexico needing to do more, and this was one of the key themes yesterday. We have a pretty open border with, I shouldn't say open border with Canada, but we have obviously lots of ports of entry through Canada. And this is not, these drugs, at least to the best of my knowledge, are not flowing through those legal border crossings. So the point is that Canada doesn't have a lot of drug cartels that are running rampant, and we need the government of Mexico to do a lot more, working with DEA and other U.S. law enforcement to crack down on the drug cartels there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Delegate Miller.
Yeah, sorry, I've got you guys on too. Here, I'll start my video. There we go. So a couple questions. Would it surprise you to know that they're proposing curriculum for our 6th, 7th, 8th graders about sex trafficking and trying to teach them in our classrooms what that means? So I want you to think about that. 11 and 12-year-olds, those are the highest, starting to 12 to 16, they told us we're at highest risk for sex trafficking. And so that is what is being proposed in Maryland schools, that we now need to teach our children how to avoid that, how to look for that, which, again, with the rise in online communications and luring of minors, that's definitely something we need to pay attention to. But I would implore you to work on, especially as in regard to women and young girls and sex trafficking, that you do something about. As far as the border security, that is a crucial topic for us here. The other part, as far as regarding the fentanyl, when we had our freshman bus tour and learning about from a place called Colta, which is manufacturing, growing facility of medicinal marijuana, they let us know that 50% of street marijuana, I guess you would call it, illegal growers, is 50% of it's laced with fentanyl. So the crisis that we have now is even going to explode even more until we can try to get these things under control. So that's kind of where, but the teaching our children how to avoid sex trafficking is now happening in our schools.
So on sex trafficking is a big problem with respect to teaching about sex trafficking, to warn students and what grades to do that in. Those are issues obviously for both our local school jurisdictions and the state school board, and happy to work with you on making sure that whatever information is relayed is done in an appropriate manner. But as to the issue of sex trafficking, this is a scourge, and Maryland because of the 95 corridor, we are very much part of that route for sex trafficking. Now, the University of Maryland does have a really good program designed to try to work, to identify the sources of sex trafficking, and then obviously work with law enforcement to interrupt sex trafficking. But it is a huge issue. Anything we can do to work with you on that. If you have any, specific information that we can work with you on, federal law enforcement, obviously, since it's an interstate thing, is involved in this, as is our state and local law enforcement. So happy to work with you on that. In terms of, fentanyl in other, like marijuana products, the issue with fentanyl, as you say, is it can be put anywhere. There's also another dangerous development in what's being sort of laced into
Relax. Nothing crazy. Tonight's going to be the
opioid. The street name is, I think, Trank. It's actually a veterinarian used tranquilizer that we're seeing mixed in with fentanyl and opioids. It has devastating impacts on the body. And so this is something we're seeing more and more of, and because it's legally used for veterinarians, it can be more easily diverted into the supply. It kind of apparently has like it's a sedative effect. In any event, I mentioned that for those of you who've not seen reports of that, unfortunately, we're seeing more and more in Maryland.
Thank you, Senator.
It has really awful side effects for people.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I did want to let everyone know that Congressman Trone has joined us. Welcome, Congressman. We actually started off with the very tough subjects involving border security, the drug epidemic, which led into discussion concerning sex trafficking. So I don't know if you want to comment on any of those. I know you missed most of the discussion, but give you an opportunity to speak to those.
No, thank you very much. And thanks for having us both here today. I'm up in Hagerstown right now at my office here. So I got here a couple minutes late, but I listened to the entire discussion on the car when I came up. Senator Van Hollen, nailed it. I spend the number one issue I work on is addiction, and that's fentanyl. As you know, we lost our nephew, and so as the other delegate mentioned, everyone across this country has had tremendous losses. We actually got 26 laws signed into effect last year on mental health and addiction together out of our bipartisan addiction caucus that I co-chair, including the state opioid response grants, which will send $8.75 billion over the next 5 years to the states for you and the governor to distribute. But the big issue is the Mexican government has adopted a policy of hugs. That's literally a hug, like your children, not bullets. And I've been to Mexico. I took a Codel there. I spent a week in Mexico City. They have no intention, zero, of cracking down on the cartels. They are a complete, terrible partner. The DEA gets no help. ONDCP gets no help. And most of the government is infiltrated either through bribery or pure out fear of the 56,000 murders that happened last year in Mexico, which less than 1% were solved. 1% solved. So they murder with impunity in Mexico. That was a comment from the Attorney General's office to us. So we can't win at the border when, as Senator Van Hollen said, 94%, roughly it's 94% comes through legal border crossings. We don't have the technology. There's an appropriation for $589 million that went out in 2019, which they have not yet been able to come up with how they're going to spend it. To look at high-speed cars where they can X-ray into the car like we can now. But the only cars we pull over now or ones we know something is wrong through some informants we might have, et cetera. 200,000 cars a day come over the border, 73 million a year. So it's a flow we're not going to stop. So we need to work in our towns on prevention, like the crisis center we did in Meredith. And I know Senator Van Hollen, I both encourage community project funding, grant applications in these areas. We're happy to, follow up on them aggressively.
Thank you, Congressman. All right, those statistics are alarming. Would you mind sharing with just sending it to me, the 26 laws that were passed, so more details, so we could get that information out to our folks? I'd appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
You raised a good issue about the mental health, but I guess, the problem is becoming that these aren't overdoses, they're poisonings. And, a large portion of our population is being poisoned. So anything we can do to help you all to slow that down or stop it, we more than welcome to help out. Delegate Grossman.
Good morning. Good morning, Congressman. Good morning, Senator. Thank you both for being here. And I certainly just wanted to, I think, piggyback a little bit on, I didn't know Congressman Trone was going to say this, but I think one of the places, especially in Western Maryland, where we're really losing the fight with addiction and mental health is access to care, right? The crisis center at Meredith is a help, but that's 3 beds. And we know we have far more than 3 individuals that need that service on any given day. So I certainly hope that we can count on support from both of you as we look at localized crisis centers and rapid access to care for our folks that are struggling with addiction and mental health. I just wanted to throw that out while we were all on the phone this morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Delegate Gresham, for mentioning that. I think that you put your finger on a key issue. We've been talking, as we should, there's so many dimensions to this epidemic. Obviously, we've been talking about interdicting the flows of fentanyl, but we also need to do a much better job of creating more access to treatment here, and that includes mental health. And again, something Congressman Trone has been very, very involved in, and Senator Cardin and I. And we look, any additional thoughts you have would be appreciated. Chairman Weibel, it's great to have Congressman Trone here. I didn't know he was going to be joining us. I do have a hard out a little bit after 9, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next item. I know that you all have updated us on the federal spending bills, but I guess I was more interested in some more of the detail, and maybe you can get that to us later as far as the bipartisan infrastructure bill. I believe there's been about 185 billion, at least what I read, released to date for about 6,900 projects. The Inflation Reduction Act, the 739 billion in additional revenues, 433 billion to be expended in energy security, climate change, Affordable Care Act, and then I guess the federal spending bill that was just passed in December. So I guess my interest there was in how that money gets allocated, I guess, through the states and eventually to our jurisdictions, and how we can let our constituents know kind of the details of that and how they might be able to access some of those funds.
Yeah, let me take a quick crack at that. First of all, the infrastructure modernization bill passed with a big bipartisan vote in the Senate. That money is in 2 parts. The big part, $8 billion is coming to Maryland, between $7 and $8 billion over the next 5 years. I've looked at the transportation projects each of your counties have submitted to the state. All of those projects would be eligible for these funds. Okay, that's number one. Former Governor Hogan, I'm sure you know, put $90 million from the infrastructure bill into phase 2 of the I-81 widening project. So there's a direct benefit to Western Maryland from the infrastructure bill. I should also say the American Rescue Plan, one of the big investments that have been made, again, with the previous administration is about between $300 and $400 million for high-speed internet extension. And the infrastructure bill also has additional funds that will come to Maryland for high-speed internet. So I thought I would flag those two things. With the Inflation Reduction Act, there will also be some funds available coming to Maryland. Much of the funding in that bill is direct to consumer, right? Incentives, to, for example, make homes more energy efficient, buy more energy efficient appliances. But there are funds that will be traveling through the state of Maryland under that bill as well. Finally, I do want to flag that, the American Rescue Plan provided direct funding to the state, about $3.8 billion. It also provided direct funding to all of your counties and municipalities in your counties. That came in two tranches. The monies need to be spent, all of them, by the end of 2024. Some counties have money that is unallocated and unspent. We just recently, Congressman Trone in the House, myself and others in the Senate, made the use of those monies even more flexible. They're already broadly very flexible, but for example, they already could be used for water and sewer and high-speed internet. These are the monies that came direct to counties and municipalities. We just made a change that allows them to be used on infrastructure broadly. So to the extent that the counties you represent have funds that are still left from the American Rescue Plan, I thought it's important. It's useful to know that there are even more allowable uses for those funds.
I appreciate that. Congressman Trone, did you have anything to add?
No, well said. It's all there. Got to use it. And we got to hold on to what's in the governor's budget. I mean, we can't let somebody else pull that out of Western Maryland. You guys work too hard. We work too hard. And that's 8115, 150 million, the 70 million we got for 219, the 38 million we got for 68, and the 10 million for 220. So we have a lot of money that's coming to Western Maryland on 5 transportation projects, all huge. And we got to make sure they get delivered to Western Maryland. They don't get diverted in Annapolis as they could be now into Baltimore or somewhere else.
Totally agree. I appreciate that. Senator, I know you got to go, but I wanted to touch on the Antietam battlefield a little bit. I know it's more unique to Washington County, but there's been a lot of threats there as far as the events that have been held for years. The illumination was threatened this past year as not being allowed to be held. And as you know, that's an incredible tribute to the 23,110 casualties of that battle. And then more recently, the salute to independence was threatened as to not be allowed to return after the visitor center was complete. So we've sent letters to your office. I know there's a lot of folks that want to see those events continue. We've also sent letters to the Secretary of Interior. So whatever both of you can do to put pressure on folks to make sure those events aren't threatened from the National Park Service, we would appreciate that.
Well, let me just say something on that. We are both David and I are working with you and other community leaders and the National Park Service on those issues. My understanding, this may be late breaking news, which is that the lighting ceremony will be resumed. I hope I'm right about that. Nan, correct me if I'm wrong. So that is a result of conversations that we've all had within the last week. With respect to the fireworks, my understanding is for this 4th of July, that's not going to be possible because they're still doing the renovations of the headquarters there. But we are, I think Congressman Trone and I both agree that we will remain engaged with you, the community, and the National Park Service as about restoring that in some way going forward.
And we appreciate that. Next item, trying to move things along. We do have hospice.
Delegate Weibel, I believe the senator and the congressman have a.
Well, I've got to go. I don't know about David. I do have to run. It is great to be with all of you. And please, give me a call if there are any particular follow-up issues, and also Nan can help get information.
Will do, and we appreciate your time this morning, Senator, and just want to mention that Nan does a great job representing you in our jurisdiction, so hopefully she's around for a while because she's been a good contact for you and us.
Very good. Well, thank you. She's there as long as she wants to be. All right, take care. All right, thank you all. Bye-bye.
I'm good for a couple minutes. I've got a meeting at 9:15 with Commissioner John Barr, who I believe all of you know. So I'm good until I got to run over in town here to see him. So if you want to hit me with a couple questions, I'm good to go.
The last item we had on the agenda was the hospice asked to speak this morning about some of the issues they're facing. So I'll turn it over to Ernesto Lopez, who's the CEO of Hospice of Washington County. Ernesto, if you want to take a few minutes.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And today I have my colleagues, Carlos Scriveron, who's the Executive Director at Frederick Health Hospice, and Dr. Ben Goldstein, who's the Medical Director of Palliative Care at UPMC Western Maryland. And together we represent 3 of the 4 hospice organizations in Western Maryland. I want to talk to you briefly about a couple of different things, but primarily talk to you about certificate of need and a bill that's currently in the House, HB 0810, which is the Hospice Care Program Certificate of Need repeal. And that's sponsored by Delegate Jefferson Grist from the Eastern Shore. And basically, this bill is very concerning to all the hospices in the state of Maryland. This repealing the requirement that a hospice acquired a certificate of need to build or expand a facility. And on the surface, it seems benign, but as you look deeper into this bill, we feel like this is gateway legislation that could lead to potentially a complete repeal for all of hospice certificate of needs in Maryland. And it creates a loophole potentially for hospitals or nursing care facilities to be able to designate or build out hospice beds without actually being a hospice, and provide hospice care without having the training or competencies or oversight to do so. So this bill in itself is very concerning to us. And over the years, there's been a tremendous amount of dialogue with the state, with the Maryland Healthcare Commission about changing or modifying the certificate of need laws for the state. Certificate of need in Maryland provides patient access, it ensures quality, it supports individual communities. This structure has been in place for many years, and today we have 25 programs in the state. We have predominantly nonprofit organizations. 88% of the hospices in Maryland are nonprofit, which means that these programs are deeply embedded in the community. They provide tremendous community benefit, provide complete care, meaning we provide hospice services to all patients regardless of their ability to pay. And so a lot of these components have been set by the rules that we have in place for certificate of need in the state. So just wanted to bring that to the attention to the group as this bill makes its way through. And again, we feel like this can be detrimental for hospices in Maryland, eventually changing the way that CON laws are structured.
Yeah, can I just jump in real quick? Obviously, that's a state issue. So you guys got to sort that one out. It's good to know about it, but I'm going to run and see Mr. Barr. The only thing I would mention on the way out the door quickly is we have the farm bill coming up. I'm on the appropriations committee, and the farm bill is being reauthorized. So anything you have from your farmers, make sure you push them my way so we can help have what they want and they need heard, and I can work for you. So tell those, the farmers to reach out. And the second thing, project funding, is what, Delegate Grossman talked about. We're looking for projects that we can drive to help, the county in the area of folks who are in recovery. And we've done these all over the district, and much more than just Meredith's. So community project funding is alive and well. It's bipartisan. Everything I sent in last year, I got 100% approved, 100%. And the senators were great support, fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. So please encourage everybody in your areas to feed us community project funding requests, and we'll do our best and we'll get them over the finish line. I'm going to go meet Mr. Barr, and thanks for having us down.
Thank you, Congressman. Anyone have any comments on that issue or the hospice issue? Those were the last items we had on the agenda. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order as far as the members?
We have a question from Dr. Goldstein.
Yeah, I'll recognize him in a sec. All right, go ahead, Mr. Goldstein.
I'm a physician in Allegheny County at University of Pittsburgh. Just want to talk really quickly about the CON bill. There's an article by Ava Kaufman in the New Yorker that kind of looks at some of the difficulties of not having a CON and not having things regulated. So if you guys have a chance to read that, that's something I'd be worried about that might happen. There's a lot of fraud and a lot of issues with hospice if it's not regulated. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I appreciate all your time and effort in listening about this and trying to help us out.
Thank you, Doctor. If you want to forward that article to my email address, we can forward it to the members. Delegate Boucher.
Thank you, Chairman Weigel. I want to go back and touch on the Antietam battlefield. I'm a very big fan of the battlefield, frequent it maybe a dozen times a year. It's a good place to reflect and think if you have something heavy on your heart, because there was a tremendous sacrifice made there. And as I visit the National Cemetery, I've noticed repeatedly over the years how eroded the head markers are on those heroes that are buried in that cemetery. And I think collectively, we as the Western Maryland delegation should communicate and convey to both the senators and Congressman Cherone the importance of restoring those head markers, because as future generations go there and visit that cemetery, they will not even be able to read the names on the headstones. And I find that quite tragic. And we as citizen or civil servants should pay attention to this and do everything we can to restore their headstones, to give recognition to those soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice, which led to the Emancipation Proclamation, which is very important to all of us in this state. So I just want to drop that out there, and maybe collectively we can talk about informally, maybe put something together in a letter format to those representatives in the federal government who can maybe research it, put together a commission so it can be done. Because I think these national cemeteries are quite complex in my understanding of the history and its preservation. So whatever we can do collectively, I'd really appreciate the help on it. So thank you, Chairman.
That's a good point, Delegate. Thank you. We can do a letter on behalf of the Western Maryland delegation, circulate to the members for approval. But thank you for bringing that issue up. Totally
Thank you.
agree. Anyone else have anything? Not seeing any hands raised. We also have an opportunity for the public to speak. If there's anyone who's joining us, if you could state your name and address for the record, have an opportunity to address the delegation at this point. I do not see anyone, so that would conclude the meeting. Again, I want to thank you all for your time and interest this morning in these really serious issues. So thank you all.
Thank you, good delegate.